Hi, and welcome to another episode of Social Media Help Desk. I'm Rick Ormsby, and joining me today is Brianna Quash. We're coming to you out of Atlanta, Georgia. How are you doing today, Brianna?
Doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Well, today we'll be talking about anti-bullying campaigns on social media, as well as hashtags, where and when you should use them, and blogs. How are they useful for your business? So, bullying has been an issue pretty much since the advent of social media.
Mm-hmm.
And where there's people, and particularly when there's people that think they can express themselves without any sort of consequence or having to look the other person in the face, it's very easy for bullying to kind of thrive. Now, fortunately, over the past few years, pretty much every social media channel has started taking action against this by putting in a variety of new features or just promotional campaigns to encourage against it. Earlier in September, there had been some rumors that perhaps Facebook was going to be implementing a new feature to hide the like count or remove it completely. And earlier this week, or actually I think it was beginning of last week, the social media giant began testing this feature actually in Australia. Now it turns out that we thought they'd be removing the like count, but what they're doing is that they'll be stripping the audience's ability to see reactions, so that's likes and any other reaction, to video views. But the creator can still see all of this stuff. So I think, to me, this sounds like it's a way that when the video goes out there, you know, your friend or someone else you know or doesn't know posts a video, you can't see how well that video is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you post the video, you'll still know whether or not people are liking it, but I think this just kind of takes away that ability of someone coming back and then criticizing over a lack of response to a video. What is your take on this?
You know, I'm really interested to see maybe what their data is on, like what maybe the likes have to do with bullying, because to me, I can't really necessarily correlate the two. I would assume that maybe someone who's maybe not as popular on social media may not get the type of responses that they may want, but I can't necessarily see how that would maybe tie into bullying. So I'm really interested to know like what maybe data they have, or maybe things that they have in regards to that to kind of tie the two together.
Well, either way, Facebook's going to take some time to see what the user feedback is. They'll actually be gathering feedback from people in Australia after this goes into effect, and then that'll help them decide whether or not this is going to be a worldwide feature or released for more texting in the future. But at the moment, we'll just have to wait and see.
We shall see.
What you brought up, though, about seeing that direct effect on bullying, I think that Instagram has something new that they're bringing out that's a little bit more direct. They've got a new feature called Restrict. And this is going to be applied across the Instagram platform that allow users to limit comments that they see on Instagram posts. So this seems like a much more direct response. If you see a comment that you don't like that's left on something that you've posted, you can use this feature to block anyone from seeing the comment, including yourself. But the comment itself isn't going to be deleted. It'll still be there, and whoever posted it can see it, but no one else can. Now, honestly, this sounds a lot like the Facebook hide feature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting to me too, because I have a young son, and I just oftentimes think of, as technology, more and more children get phones at a younger age. I really sometimes worry about how social media, and you know, if you have a bully at school, maybe sometimes, you know, when you go home, that can be kind of like your escape. But with social media, it's kind of like you can be in contact with people who want to like harass you and be mean to you when you go home, when you're, you know, on spring break, when you're on summer break. So I'm really interested to see that Instagram and Facebook are taking some actions to like kind of limit that, and I think it's really important.
Oh, it's a good point. Again, that's the big problem, is that there was a time when you could just leave your bullies at school, but now, since I believe I think many kids these days get their first cell phone, I want to say the age is around 12. So it's a prime time to at that point in your life where you're subject to bullying and you risk bringing it home with you. What I like about this feature is that it really gives the control back into the hands of the person that's getting bullied. And there's a certain degree of empowerment to when you see that comment, that's something that's shared in a hurtful light, to be able to just turn it off and it goes away. It gives a little bit of power back to the hands of the bullying victim, which I think is a really good step in the right direction.
I agree.
And lastly, YouTube, and this is a little bit along the same lines, but not necessarily in terms of bullying. As most people may know, if you are operating on YouTube, there have been changes in the last few years regarding monetization. And this has gotten a lot of negative feedback from a bunch of variety of different creators who found it difficult to either make money off of their channels that used to be money-making channels, or having trouble understanding really what does and does not qualify for monetization. As some of the users feel that their acceptable content has either been unfairly targeted or incorrectly flagged as something that can't be monetized on YouTube. And fortunately, YouTube has heard everyone's complaints and has decided to take a really unique approach to correcting this. Instead of just hiring more people to review everything, what YouTube has, or institute some sort of algorithm that would do that for them, YouTube has gone around to the creators themselves and basically given them the option to say, you can go ahead and flag this or not. What that does is it allows the user to determine, okay, this is something that probably should not be monetized. I'm aware of it, I'm going to tell you right now, go ahead and flag it. And then otherwise you can say, no, this is good content, and let it go forward. Sure, there's some challenges to that. I mean, I can see there being issues where, what if someone abuses this feature? In an ideal world, we would all be able to censor ourselves and make those choices on our own. So what YouTube has done is said that anyone that does abuse this trust is not going to be allowed to continue using the feature. So I wonder if that's, they haven't said whether it's a 3-strike rule. I'm not quite sure how that they're going to enforce it, but they've at least given some more power back to the people. And what do you think about that?
I think that's a really interesting way to do it. We as digital marketers, we hate changes in the algorithm, first off. So I'm happy, YouTube, I am very happy to hear that you will not be instituting an additional algorithm change. And I think that secondly, by allowing people to, I think that for the most part, people know when they put a song that might, this might avoid like copyright issues and things like that. When you put that in there, especially if you're someone who makes money off YouTube, what's acceptable and not acceptable. And I think being able to just go ahead in the beginning, not risk having your video silenced or having your video taken down and things like that, to just go ahead and say, hey, listen, I went ahead and put this song in here. I know that that's against YouTube policies, but I'm going to go ahead and upload it anyway, but I won't make any money off of it. And then, moving forward, then that makes it easier for the creator, it makes it easier for YouTube, everybody's happy, it's a win-win. There's no algorithm changes.
Well, I think there's a lot of potential here for people to come back to YouTube. You've now given the power back, and so I think this is a really smart move on behalf of the platform to draw back some of those creators who may have been turned off by some of the changes in the last few years. And so that helps everybody. That helps the creators, that helps YouTube, that gives everybody more opportunity to create and to share their content. And honestly, now that there's more competition for sharing video between Instagram and Facebook, it makes sense for YouTube.
They had to do something.
They have to do something to bring people back in. And I think that there is a lot of potential here. And in the short term, you may have more work on behalf of YouTube to figure out who can receive the monetization, who gets kicked out. But over time, it should be a self-correcting program where people that use it correctly, that takes less resources away for trying to demonetize, and ultimately it keeps the content that we don't want to see, that we don't want to have either illegally making money or making money for violation of YouTube's guidelines and principles. That content will ultimately continue to stop, but it gives freedom back to the creators, so it's very pleasant to see. Now we'll shift gears a little bit. I think I'll hand it over to you to discuss hashtags.
Alrighty. So I know that we talk about hashtags kind of a lot on our social media help desk, but I don't think that you can really, I think that hashtags are one of the most underrated things on social media. Just the use of hashtags can just take your social media game to a whole nother level. However, really utilizing hashtags to the best of your ability really depends on what platform you're on. So you wouldn't use hashtags on Instagram the same way you would use hashtags on Twitter, and you definitely wouldn't use the hashtags the same way you would on Twitter, on Facebook, or LinkedIn. So I just have a little bit of information here to tell you guys about how you might want to change up your hashtag game per the channel that you're using, and then you can make sure that you're using them correctly. So one thing that I really like for people to know is that with Instagram, hashtags really are a must. I think some of the other channels maybe not so much, but definitely with Instagram, because that's going to just show your content to people who are actually looking for it. So with Instagram, it's incredibly useful for business who really want to utilize those hashtags, because the users are actively utilizing this feature. We see that all the time, that Instagram users are using hashtags to search, they're using it to find the things that they're looking for. And then users on Instagram also have the benefit of following hashtags, which I know we talked about that before, where you can actually now, Instagram has implemented a feature where you can, so if you like interior design, which I do, I personally follow the interior design hashtag. And then so in my feed, without me even having to really search for it, I get content that utilizes the interior design hashtag, and I see content from a lot of different users and pages, and sometimes businesses that utilize that interior design hashtag, and then I can see their content. And then so when you're using hashtags on Instagram, as we said before, it goes into kind of like a bucket. So if you were to click that hashtag, you're going to go to a page full of every post that's utilized that hashtag. And that's a really good way for users to find your content. So if you're not utilizing hashtag, KWSM will tell you again, on Instagram, you need to use hashtags.
Now, how many hashtags should you use on Instagram?
So you can use a maximum of 30 hashtags. But
should I use the full 30 every time I post something on Instagram?
You could use the full 30. I personally like to stay somewhere between 15 to 20, and then you want to make sure that you're not using the same hashtags every time. So you might have 3 or 4 that are gonna stay the same. Let's say if you're a doggy daycare, you might put fur baby, pets of Instagram, things like that. But you want to be actively changing them out to be relevant to the content that you're posting, and just relevant to maybe things that your people are saying in your comments. You just want to change it up a little bit and just try to reach get in as many buckets as you can. So that's kind of my go-to for Instagram. Now Twitter is a whole different ballgame. Twitter is a very fast-paced environment where there is constantly content being put out there, and if you're not actively on the platform, you're going to miss a lot of things. And now, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Twitter is kind of who made up the hashtag thing. They started it, and they are the creators of it. But the fast-paced environment of Twitter really thrives when you use hashtags. So that's another good way for you to get in front of a potential audience, to get to kind of show up on people's feeds, or kind of looking to be on the pages that people are looking for by utilizing hashtags. But the one thing that I think is really important to know about hashtags on Twitter is that you get a maximum of 280 characters on Twitter. That is including your hashtags, any links that you're posting. So you have to be really careful and strategic in how you put your hashtags into your posts, because you have a little bit of characters to use, and you just want to make sure that you're using those wisely. So.
And there's no real downside to using a hashtag on Twitter or Instagram, is there?
There's really not that I can see. I mean, unless you're just completely going overboard and every single word "and I love" is a hashtag, and that might be a little off-putting to your audience. But other than that, as long as you're putting hashtags in your content, I think that's a good way to go. And so we also have LinkedIn, which is relatively new to the hashtag game, I guess you could say. So it's a more recent feature on LinkedIn. And then users on LinkedIn, however, can search for hashtags, search for different keywords using hashtags. So that's something that we're starting to see a lot more people doing on LinkedIn. And if you're not familiar with LinkedIn, LinkedIn is a more professional platform. It's basically kind of like a professional Facebook. And so that's one thing to keep in mind when you're utilizing hashtags on LinkedIn, is that, so if you're a doggy daycare, you may not want to put, love our fur. You may not want to put the silly, funny hashtags on LinkedIn if you're going to go ahead and do hashtags on LinkedIn. You want to keep them more professional and kind of think more keyword based of things that people might be looking for.
That's a good point about trying to remain professional with the hashtags. Have you ever heard any stories about someone accidentally using a hashtag they thought had one meaning and perhaps it had a different?
No, luckily it has never happened to me.
But
that
it can
terrible,
happen.
But it can happen. So it might do a little justice if you're using a hashtag that you've never used before, to maybe click that hashtag, see what kind of things are on there. Once it's deemed safe to go ahead and proceed to use it. So that's always something to keep in mind as well. But definitely, I think that LinkedIn's hashtags are starting to become more and more popular, so that may be something that you want to go ahead and leverage in your LinkedIn social media strategy. And then Facebook. So I know that you can use hashtags on Facebook, but you may not want to, because Facebook users are really mostly spending their time scrolling through their feeds, not really searching, if that makes sense. They're kind of scrolling through their feed, being fed whatever comes to them, and not necessarily, like on Instagram and Twitter, you might be looking for things and looking to engage. On Facebook, the engagement is kind of coming to you, if that makes sense.
Right.
That makes sense. Right. So you know, you're being fed ads, you're being fed, you know, things of groups you may be in, your family is posting pictures of, you know, awesome things that they're doing, friends, and you're going to kind of mostly stay on your feed unless you're going to maybe go check out someone else's page and see what they have going on, but you're not really going to look for content. You know, you're not necessarily going to look for content, and that's why we don't really recommend that you use hashtags on Facebook, and just kind of, you know, just keep your content, maybe add a couple cute emojis, a link or something like that, but you might want to shy away from the hashtags.
Well, and I think I've even seen that BuzzSumo did a study involving more than 1 billion posts, and they found that the posts on Facebook that incorporated hashtags actually did worse than posts that did not.
Wow.
And I think that makes a lot of sense with what you're saying, that Facebook is that news feed where people come in and they're flying through. They're moving their finger. We've called it before the thumb stopper. You're trying to make content that'll get that thumb to stop moving and click. And that if there's too much information in that little bit of real estate of your description above your link preview or your image or your video, then you risk losing your audience. And while the hashtags really serve a purpose for directing traffic, directing users on LinkedIn, on Twitter and on Instagram, with Facebook more, that almost sounds like they feel more like an afterthought, and they have the risk of getting in the way of what's your real purpose of putting in either a nice call to action or an engaging description to draw people back in. So even though they do exist on Facebook and they can be used, I don't think that most users are utilizing them in that way. And in that sense, that as you, the creator or the business or the individual, if you want things to be seen, you want to present them in a way that makes the most sense for your users to engage with them at the end of the day.
Right. And just a last little tidbit that I think that everyone should know. In 2018, 125 million hashtags were shared and used every day. So you want to be a part of that, you know, community of hashtag users, because you'll be found by your audience, more likely.
Well, hopefully that helps. It sounds like the Twitter and Instagram are the two really big places where you need to be using them, and then Facebook and LinkedIn, it's a little bit more of a at your own caution.
Yes, exactly.
Next, I wanted to talk about blogs and the question of, are they important for my business? Are there any benefit to them? It seems like that years ago blogging was relatively new, but now it seems that that's just an extension of marketing or an online presence, and it seems that businesses of nearly any industry have some sort of associated blog. And so I've seen questions from various business owners saying, are blogs important for my business? And I think they are.
I've had clients ask, because blogs can be kind of some of the most tedious content to create as far as a digital marketing strategy is concerned. And so a lot of people kind of just don't want to be bothered with it. They don't really know, where to start, what kind of blog should I do, what kind of content is relevant, how often should I blog? So these are a lot of questions that we get, and some people just don't want to be bothered with it. So here are some really good reasons as to why your business should have some blogs.
Well, I think it sums down to three basic principles. Blogs will help bring people in. It allows you a chance to communicate directly with your potential lead or consumer or your audience, educate and inform them, and then you also have an opportunity to convert those leads. So in terms of bringing people in, the use of blogs helps contribute to SEO. In the eyes of Google, it's that idea that the Field of Dreams. Did you ever see Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner? No. It's a great film, but it has this classic lines of, if you build it, they will come.
Oh, okay.
And that's the similar idea here, that if you put out blog posts that are filled with keywords that associate back to your business, your company, your web page, these will contribute to your ranking through Google, and it promotes your SEO. You want to make sure that, again, that you're writing on various topics that'll interest different groups of people, and that you're using those keywords, and you're basically casting a wider and wider net that things can get pinged on that tie back to you and your website and will rise you. It's a rising tide within the search engine.
Right. So I know that you sometimes might go to Google and type in, how do I do this? And then the first couple things that come up are, information number blogs about how to do certain things. That's the audience that you want to catch. These are the people who are searching that you want to catch. You want them to come to your website. So instead of clicking on, number 3 in the Google search, you want them to click on what you have to offer and then potentially see your business and what your business has to offer.
And the more blogs you write, and the more that people share them, and the more backlinks link back to your blogs, all of these things contribute to a higher website rank.
Right.
And that brings us to the next step, is now that you've brought people in, what do you do? Well, the blogs themselves, they're a fantastic way to showcase your expertise.
Right.
And this is an incredible opportunity to build your credibility as either an industry expert or as an expert on a particular product or topic. This is your chance to speak for yourself, not just letting reviews talk for you, but this is an open dialogue to the audience that you can set on a regular schedule. If you have a weekly blog, a monthly blog might be a little too far apart, but if you can really hit that sweet spot of a blog every week or every 2 weeks, you now have, it's almost like a regularly scheduled program.
Right.
People will be used to seeing that in their social media feeds and their email, or they'll go to your website in particular to subscribe to it. And it allows you to just showcase how much you know about a given topic, or to raise your brand's awareness in connection with that topic.
And I think that a lot of people sometimes get nervous as to, I'm selling something completely, left field. What kind of blog could I possibly write about that? And I think that, actually doing research on the things that people are, that people are Googling or searching in your relevant industry. And it also adds another layer of credibility to the website as a whole. I know that we've all been on websites that are kind of sketchy. They don't necessarily have many pages too long. There's not really much information about the company or, when my package will arrive and things like that. So sometimes having more, maybe not going overboard with a gajillion pages, but sometimes having a little bit more information can kind of ease your consumers or your people interested in your business to, feel a little bit more like they can trust your website and trust your company. So,
well, in a lot of ways, it's the sort of thing where people are beginning to expect it. Mm-hmm. And so one of the ways when they're trying to vet you is they'll go to all the different aspects of their page. Right. If they go there and they only see 1 or 2 blogs, well, it's like, well, what's going on here? Are they new, or have they just not been keeping up with this? And that's where we're trying to come up with what do you say? Well, one of the easiest things to come back to is talk about yourself. It's okay to toot your own horn. It really is. Like, this is a great opportunity. Talk about accomplishments that you, your organization, your business have achieved. Highlight case studies and testimonials.
Yeah,
this
definitely.
is a fantastic place through blogs to talk about the positive experiences that your audience or your customers or clients have had when they've worked with you or your products. So again, it's that next extension out of it. If you don't have anything to talk about, most organizations can always talk about themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing about day-to-day life at your, your company or organization. Information about team members and things like that are always good go-tos.
Team highlights, anything like that. That's another thing, is that a lot of times users are going to want to do research before they engage in any sort of business transaction. And if you use this window to let them know in advance, who are they going to be interacting with?
Relatability factor.
Yes, again, it's that relatability and credibility. You're establishing a relationship virtually before you engage in an actual relationship through, which leads us into our next point, completing the transaction. That's ultimately with most businesses at the end of the day, you're hoping to generate leads and then convert those leads into some sort of sale. Whether you're for-profit or you're non-profit, at the end of the day, you're ultimately trying to get some sort of transaction to occur. Blogs are another fantastic place to promote the products and services that you offer, but while you're promoting them, you can also include calls to actions and links back to landing pages to where people can actually engage in the sale itself or sign up for a service.
Yep. Backlinking is a really, really good thing to do inside of your blogs, because I always tell clients that your audience is lazy. They don't want to have to do too much clicking around to find what they need to find. So if you're talking about fuzzy socks in your blog, you need to have a link to the fuzzy socks right there in the blog. So people are like, oh my God, you're right, these fuzzy socks do sound amazing. I need to get those. They can go ahead and click. They don't have to go back to the shop area of your website, search through fuzzy socks. They need to be able to get right to the landing page and purchase. You need to get them from point A to point B very quickly. So that's a really important thing as well.
And it's neat too, because this gives you the opportunity where you can decide what else goes on that page. So if you're a new company and you want to start associating your brand with some established brand, you can kind of ride on that other established organization's coattails by comparing a blog of saying maybe these are the 7 key fuzzy socks you need, and then you've got your Nordstrom level fuzzy socks, and then you also have someone else, and then you have yours mixed in there too. So just by association, the audience is going to start connecting the dots to the type of product or service that you offer in connection with something else that they're already familiar with.
Right. And I think a little e-commerce tip for all of my audience members out there, if you put a product inside of a blog, and let's say you backlink to that product or to that landing page, if you see in your analytics that 2 products are usually purchased together, make sure that other product is on that page as well.
That's
and
right.
Then there you go,
That's
double
right.
whammy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sold 2 products in one blog.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and then you also want to make sure that you're sharing these blogs onto social media.
Oh, that's true.
You want to get these blogs in front of as many people as possible. So if you're gonna, and I'm not necessarily saying you don't want to do it robotically, right? So I see sometimes that some of our people share blogs, and it's kind of like they just share the blog. They don't really add a captivating caption to make people want to click the links. They're kind of sharing them on each platform on the same way every day, or at the same time every day. No, you kind of want to curate, put that content out, strategically. So if maybe you're talking about fuzzy socks on Instagram, you might want to put it in your Instagram story. Or if you're going to do it on Facebook, you might want to, talk about fuzzy socks and, share it on Facebook. I can't think off the top of my head, but you just want to make sure it's a good strategy to share those out there so people can click them and read them.
And they really go hand in hand. If you have a regular occurring type of social media post, like say a blog, you have a reason why people are going to be clicking and engaging on your social media platforms on a regular basis, which is going to benefit each one of those pages' engagement, and it keeps you relevant in the eyes of your audience.
Right.
So again, if you're engaged in social media already, it makes a lot of sense to be engaging in blogging as well, because they go hand in hand together.
Right. Yeah, your blogs are going to serve as some really great content, easy content for you to share onto your social media profiles.
And if you'd like to pursue any of these options, whether it's social media or blogging, but you can't really, you're worried about where to start, you don't know how to do it yourself, by all means, come talk to us. Contact us. We have a variety of services that'll help provide a full social media strategy. Or if you're interested in just learning a bit more, we have social media boot camps throughout the month of October, every Friday in Orange County, and I believe upcoming the Friday the 25th here in Atlanta, we'll have a social media boot camp for Instagram. So please go to our website, KWSMdigital.com, and take a look at some of the options we have coming up in terms of your social media education. And with that, thank you so much for joining us today for another edition of the Social Media Help Desk. I hope you'll have a fantastic rest of your week.
Bye.